for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sport Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering FIFA Pro, PFA threatening to club the World Cup, threatening to have a player strike for the Club World Cup. Enzo Maresca can he take Chelsea back to the Champions League? Biggest storylines from the Champions League final. What is considered success for the U.S. men's national team at this Copa America? And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some of the top headlines going on in the football world. Before we start, I'd like to ask that you like and follow the show. We get a number of questions that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it. It also really helps the show. So again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. The Club World Cup is, this new expanded version that's trying to, take steam. And it's an expanded version of the Club World Cup. It's going to be used to essentially replace the Confederation Cup. You remember in the previous years, in the summers before the before the World Cup, they'd have a Confederation Cup amongst a lot of the continental champions and then the host nations, and the previous winners of the World Cup also as well. They would all play in one big tournament. It'll be and it's gonna get replaced this year by the Club World Cup, this new expanded version of the Club World Cup. Now, the Club World Cup is interesting because in the fact that it's not just like the previous Club World Cup with the one European team and then one team from each confederation. This is going to be a 32-team format. It's going to be a 32-team format, and there's actually going to be 8 teams that come from Europe. 8 teams will be coming from Europe, actually. And the teams that have qualified from UEFA include Chelsea, Real. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, no, it's 12 teams that come from Europe. 12 teams that come from Europe, and those teams are official. It will be Chelsea, Real Madrid, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Inter Milan, Porto, Benfica, Borussia Dortmund, Juventus, Atletico Madrid, and Red Bull Salzburg. Those are confirmed into there. So, and there's going to be 12 teams from Europe in this 32-team format, and it kind of creates something that could rival the Champions League a bit, in terms of the fact that a lot of the top European teams, they're going to be going head to head, especially in the later stages. You're going to have an opportunity for some of these CONCACAF teams to get more exposure, these CONMEBOL teams to, pull off some sort of upset with Palmeiras, Flamengo, Fluminense, River Plate, and more. And it, on the look of the basis, it seems a great way to grow the club game just worldwide. The club game happens to be really, really big in Europe. But this gives it an opportunity to grow it wide. But, with positives, there are negatives. And that is, there has been a recent uproar over the past few years of players just playing way too many games in the, just in general, just playing too many games, too much minutes, too many tired legs. And that has been a huge, huge issue. So, so it is FIFA Pro, PFA have threatened a player strike. Players have warned, FIFA that they're willing to go on strike because of the calendar being too loaded, and the chief executive of the PRA, of the Professional Football Association, said himself that a lot of the global player union that said while global player union and FIFA Pro is gonna lead a joint lawsuit with a lot of the European leagues, and he's wanted, the PFA CEO has wanted a change since February. He thinks players have just played too many games and it's reaching a breaking point, and just the schedule is too packed. And when you look at it, what it looks like, when you look at club football and the international game, it's a lot of football going on. That's something that's inarguable. There's a lot of football going on when you look at the club game and then all these international breaks, and you have the international tournaments this summer. Then you want to top it off with just another Club World Cup next summer. And, also, this might put teams a little bit out of a disadvantage compared to, other teams that are not participating in this next year. It's going to put teams at a disadvantage. Like Real Madrid, they're going to have to compete in this next season, but their rivals, their Barcelona, they have not been able to get in. So they're not going to have to participate in this. And could that give, Barcelona a good start in La Liga for that following year, because of the fact that they were on break throughout the summer. Their players were able to have a proper holiday and all that, while Real Madrid players had to play a major international tournament, or club international tournament. And there's what concerns me too about this is if there's certain clubs that don't deem this tournament as an opportunity, I'm afraid of the potential of this becoming just another preseason type of tournament. And that would be a very, very bad look for UEFA, or not for UEFA, for FIFA. And also keep in mind this, FIFA are not doing this, completely with the support of confederations, like especially with UEFA, because this essentially becomes a club tournament that rivals the Champions League, that could rival them in terms of popularity and importance. If the FIFA are able to do what they're trying to, if FIFA are able to accomplish, this type of Club World Cup, I think this could rival the Champions League in terms of popularity amongst club football. But, there's a lot of variables in this. Obviously, when it comes to, players playing a lot of games, that is, it's a hard sell to make after playing a 38-game club season, and then the previous summer having to play an international tournament for your country, to ask them to play in a Club World Cup. It is first time around in its inaugural season. But then again, everything when it's starting off always happens to have a bad rap. Always, everything that always is starting off its first, getting through the introduction stages, they're going to go through their negatives, they're going to go through their criticism, and maybe that is what's going on today. But I definitely do believe that there has to be some sort of better, better way to, open up these calendars for these players so they don't have to play as much minutes and as much games that they do, and then having to play a Club World Cup onto that. I think, in general, major football organization, FIFA, they have to do a better job of just revamping how the international cycles is. And, I'm a huge fan of international football. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge fan of it. But there has to be a better way of, managing both club football and international football, so it just doesn't become too much of a burden on the players, so the injury risk is lower and all that. Now, in terms of this, situation, PFA CEO Mahatma Malongo said himself, I can tell you a situation not 10 days ago where I went into a dressing room that was directly affected and said, I'm happy to be here and bark a bit, but ultimately it's up to you. How far do you want to go? That's what Malonga said. And then he also said, some of them said, I'm not having it. We might as well go on strike. Some said, what's the point? Yes, I'm a millionaire, but I don't even have time to spend the money. And he also said it was not even the union that said it. It was Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola. We have reached a point where we cannot rule out any action. And Jurgen Klopp, believe me, he has been very critical of how the calendar has been on the players, how there's just been too many games and how the players are getting overworked. He's been very, very critical of that fact. In a letter that was sent to FIFA President Gianni Infantino and his General Secretary Matthias Grasfrom, the Global Player Union, FIFPro with PFA, and the World Leagues Association threatened league in action if FIFA does not change their course. FIFA has responded denying the claims that it's taken an unilateral decision to favor its competition in the international calendar, and they would not consider rescheduling the tournament. Malongo said some of the changes in England with the domestic calendar have been forced by what FIFA and UEFA have done. What has happened is further confirmation that something needs to be done, Malonga said. He also said, we will try to exhaust all diplomatic avenues. We have sent a letter, we have received a reply, but unfortunately time is against us. Sometimes between growing up people, desperate, trying very hard to find solutions, you need a third party to decide, maybe an arbitrator or a tribunal. A lot to take away from that. We'll take a short break here. When we come back, I'm going to discuss my thoughts on Enzo Maresca potentially bringing Chelsea back to the Champions League.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk?
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind.
Before the break, I discussed FIFPro, PFA threatening a Club World Cup player strike. I have to now discuss Enzo Maresca. He's looking like, it's going to be official. He's going to be appointed as a manager of Chelsea. It's going to be a 5-year deal, which is ridiculous when you think about it, 5-year deal, because I have to think, has Chelsea ever since Roman Abramovich took over, has ever had a manager there for 5 years? Not that I can think of up to now. I don't think so. But yeah, 5-year deal coming for Enzo Maresca. Now, obviously, hopefully there's some sort of clause in there that allows Chelsea to, to break away after a bit, after a few years. If it goes wrong, maybe a 5-year deal is just like the name, like 5-year contract, but Chelsea have some sort of option, hopefully something like that, and not just a straight up 5-year deal, which is just stupidity if that's the case. And again, it's added to the long lists of horrible decisions made by this new ownership group since they have taken over for Roman Abramovich. Now, can Enzo Maresca take Chelsea back into the Champions League for the following season? Now, this from last season to this season, you cannot deny the upward trajectory. Last season, Chelsea scored 38 goals in 38 games. 38 goals in 38 games. This season, Chelsea have scored 77 goals in 38 games. That happens to be more than double more the amount of goals. We averaged a little bit above 2 goals a game this season compared to last season, averaging 1 goal a game. That is an improvement. You cannot deny that. An improvement. And, and despite the lack of, our striker not being clinical, despite the issues of not having a clinical striker, we have really succeeded. We have at Chelsea. But despite the upward trajectory we've shown, there's problems amongst Pochettino and the board and the ownership group and all that. Pochettino, he has left Chelsea, or mutual parting, whatever that means. Mutual parting between the two. And it's a rough point that Chelsea find themselves now, because they're essentially having to restart the cycle again and again and again, and they're restarting it again this season. And it's unfortunate that they're having to go through this, because Chelsea were on a good note. Chelsea were improving. Chelsea were playing very, very well. Later on in the season, I believe they lost 1 game in the last 15 matches. Now, that one loss was to Arsenal. But it seemed like under Pochettino, they were showing some sort of upward trajectory. Now you're bringing in a completely different manager, and it just seems like you're recycling again. Now, these are players that lack experience. Now Thiago Silva is gone. It's even more, lack of experience within the team. And the one thing you need with lack of experience is some sort of cohesion and some sort of staple. And that's what a manager provides. But when you're changing it over and over again, it's hard for these young players to take their next stride. And it's going to be another restart for Chelsea. So let's not even discuss Enzo Maresca, the manager right now. Just in general with these Chelsea players, this youth, how are they able to get over the next hump, now having to listen to a new voice, having to adjust to a new style of play, new tactics, new formation, new everything. Just a new voice leading them. With the young players, you need cohesion. You need experience, of course, but if you don't have it, at least you need some sort of cohesion, and you need experience from the manager. And this manager lacks experience at that top level. He went to Parma. He got relegated, being in League Serie B. At Leicester City, he took over at Leicester City, which is, probably one of the most talented teams in the championship. They had the parachute of money from the Premier League. It ensured them to go back up, And is that enough to prove that he's the man for Chelsea? Now he has been an assistant for Pep Guardiola, so there is that Mikel Arteta fact of it, I guess. And he also plays the style of play that Chelsea Football Club want to play, which I'm totally against that philosophy of, Chelsea settling for a style of play rather than a manager that can help you win trophies immediately, like Roman Abramovich. That's what he did. That's how he ran Chelsea, and he ran Chelsea very successfully. This team is trying to change the tradition of new ownership group is trying to change the tradition of Chelsea, and they want to make this club like a City, like a Barcelona. Now Barcelona are actually willing to be flexible a little bit, but previously where they had their set style of possession-oriented, attacking football, pleasing football for the fans, which, I'll say Chelsea fans, they weren't struggling when we won the Champions League about the style of play under Thomas Tuchel. We weren't disappointed when we won the Premier League in Conte's first season based on the style of play. When Mourinho was winning Premier Leagues, we were not disappointed about our style of play. We were happy we were winning and we were satisfied with that. But this new group coming in want more than that, which or they want to change that, even though it's been successful. So they have this style of manager that they're going for. He said Maresca, he really showed well in the interviews, the knowledge that he had over the squad. And I'm like, okay, so what? He has knowledge over the squad? Yeah, okay, I have knowledge over this Chelsea squad. I can go from all the way down the chart. That doesn't make me a legitimate candidate to take the Chelsea, to the next level. But I don't want to say too much on Maresca because I feel like it's just like it's gonna be a hit or a miss. At the end of the day, the style of football is good, and he has a set way he's trying to play, which is attacking, possession-oriented football. He also happens to, not to be a big star, a big coaching star, and those bigger names like a Conte, like a Tuchel, like a Mourinho, they're gonna want more than just being the coach of the team. They're gonna want to be able to dictate the players coming in, and going out, and have be just more than just the manager of the team or be the coach of the team. They want to be a manager instead, a football manager of everything. And with the fact that Enzo Maresca doesn't have much experience, it kind of he's kind of a yes man essentially. I don't maybe that's a little disrespectful to say, but essentially that's what makes him. And I think a lot of the managers that have been yes man, when you look at it in general, they have not turned out to be the most successful managers when it comes to the Premier League or any of these top leagues in the top flight, that are legit, going for Premier Leagues, going for Champions League, those kind of, or La Ligas, or those kind of teams. They don't happen to operate well with having a yes man at the wheel. And I think Enzo Maresca is a little bit of that, in the fact that, maybe his biggest strength in getting him this job is the fact that he doesn't have a leg to stand on to come in and demand for players, to demand what type of, what players that he wants in the club, to control what players he wants out. He doesn't really have that. He kind of he's just the coach while everyone else, operates football. And that's how Chelsea won it. And yeah, can he take them? Getting back to the main question is, can he take them back into the Champions League the following season? He's really up against it, in the fact that what I said about the youthful of this team, and having to recycle. I don't know. It just seems like it's just gonna be another bad start to the season, another new adjustment, and I don't think this team, will be able to adjust quickly enough to make a run to get into the top 4, maybe the top 5, if the Champions League coefficient thing, falls in the favor of the Premier League based on European performance, all that, maybe that. But in terms of, actually getting, in top 4, I have my sincere doubts. When you look at the way, I think Tottenham, they're only going to improve under Postecoglou. Aston Villa, I don't see them taking a major fall. Liverpool, I think, are going to continue to be solid. Same with Arsenal, City. Newcastle, I think, will come back. I just think they'll be really, really up against it. We're going to take a short break here. When we come back, I'm going to discuss some of the biggest storylines from the Champions League final. Before the break, I discussed Enzo Maresca taking Chelsea back into the Champions League for the following season. Can he? Now I'm going to discuss some of the biggest storylines from the Champions League final. There's a lot of storylines in this Champions League final. There's always storylines in the Champions League final. I think we got to start off with Toni Kroos. He's going to be playing his last game for Real Madrid, but just last game club-wise in his career. It'll be the end of his club career after this Saturday. He had a phenomenal career at Real Madrid, at Bayern, the Champions Leagues, the Bundesligas, the La Ligas. He's done it all. He's won it all. He's one of the best midfielders of all time and has had a brilliant club career. And what a great way to end off his career, and then lifting the Champions League with Real Madrid. It'll just be the perfect fitting for a marvelous career. So, obviously that is a huge, huge headline as he, enters his final games of a footballer this summer. I think another huge storyline here, and a storyline, and honestly, that's been, gone under the radar. I haven't heard much people talk about it, which, is a little, like, even me, I forgot about, I didn't even notice this storyline until, I heard it from, a mention, but it's the fact that Jude Bellingham, playing against his former team, playing against Borussia Dortmund, in this final, a year after leaving them, to face them in the Champions League final. I think that's a big storyline that nobody is talking about. Obviously it's a huge opportunity for Jude Bellingham to win his first Champions League and to really, in terms of English youngsters, really elevate him from, the likes of other previous England golden youngsters. Winning a Champions League and winning it with Real Madrid, the pedigree there is in that, being able to put that on his CV, that would be a phenomenal for his career, just absolutely phenomenal. So that is a big storyline there. I think Jadon Sancho, his comeback, the comeback that he's had from, practicing with the Man United youngsters earlier this season to now starting on a team that's going to play in the Champions League final. I think that's a massive storyline, especially if he goes in there and he has, a performance similar to what he had against PSG in that leg one, and, just dominate Real Madrid the way he was able to dominate PSG and give Ferland Mendy suffering to make him suffer. I think that'd be huge for him. I think it'd be huge, for United too, in the fact that I think that will really drive his value up. And I just think that's a big storyline, just the miraculousness of him not even being just playing for a youth team to go and be that's just a huge factor. Real Madrid potentially winning their 15th La Liga. That's huge storyline. Real Madrid, they've been a team, these Champions Leagues, they're double the next, which is AC Milan. They have a chance to more than just double it with 15. There'll be 8 more than double more than the second place team in terms of most Champions League. They have a chance to continue to add the legacy onto that great club of just pure dominance in the Champions League, in this major club football world. Just another major title. I think that'll be huge for them, winning the 15th, and not much to be added from that. It's just another crazy accomplishment for Real Madrid. I think the Lunin versus Courtois discussion is a huge storyline too. Lunin, he has been very, very good since he's came in. There was some struggles at the beginning, having had needing players to take gold kicks and all that, but he's eased into it and he's made some very important saves, especially in the knockout stages for Real Madrid in the Champions League. He's been very, very important. But now Courtois is coming back, having played the last few La Liga games and having played very well. I think it's highly likely that he's going to be the one starting on this Saturday. When you also combine that with the fact that Courtois hasn't, Lunin is not going to be able to travel with the team. He's going to travel on his own because of the fact that he has influenza and the fact that he has the flu. I think that also could hurt his chances in the grand scheme of things. I think with the two managers, there can be massive implications on both of them. I think as far as Carlo Ancelotti, it continues to add to his career, and he spoke about how he's adapted, how he has been a manager, talking about how during his time earlier in his career managing within Serie A, he had players that didn't really fit his system, even though they were talented players, and he would just let them go. But as his career went on, he realized more that you gotta fit to what the players you got. And I think at Real Madrid, he's done a brilliant job of playing the style of play based on what the players have, what you have, being able to adapt, being able to play defensive football, being able to play more attacking, open-ended football, possession-oriented football. They've done a very good job of adapting under Carlo Ancelotti, and Carlo Ancelotti has done a good job in adapting to his players. So I think a win for him just continues to add his legacy and, really make a case to, really be up there in the coaching discussions when it comes to, the top of the top. I think he has a real opportunity to really get up there. What he's done now, defeated Pep Guardiola in the last 2 of the 3 Champions League seasons. He's not doing it against, poor opposition. He's doing it against the best of the best. And as far as Edin Terzic, though, huge implications for him. If he can win the Champions League with Borussia Dortmund, man, I think getting to the final is actually really huge, even though he's not getting the buzz that I think he should be getting. But if he can win the Champions League, I think he becomes, immediately for the following season, not this season obviously, but the season after that, he becomes one of the most coveted coaches out there. He's young. He's young. He's led this Borussia Dortmund team to a Champions League final. The way that they did it, he made them better than the sum of their parts, because their players are, quite frankly, are decent. But you wouldn't expect, before the season, we didn't expect them to be here. And I think Edin Terzic has done a big, the way he's came in, he was an interim at first, did pretty well, but still they went with a manager in Marco Rosa after his, period of being an interim. And Marco Rosa going wrong, and him coming back in, the way he revitalized this Dortmund team, getting them to play, with more confidence. He's done a brilliant job, and I think if he can win the Champions League, I think he really sets himself up in a good manner to go after one of these top jobs in the future. There's the Matt Hummels comments that were very, very interesting that he made last night or yesterday, discussing Borussia Dortmund's style of play and how it wasn't good enough and how they needed to bring in, assistant coaches to change it. I think it was a really weird thing to say a few days before the Champions League final. He was talking about how, he thinks it's, the way Bayern played was wrong, and, he couldn't, that he couldn't connect with it, and he had many talks with the manager. He was saying this. And for me, it was just like, you're in a Champions League final in a few days. How could he be so tone deaf? And it's kind of a shot to the manager, talking about how they needed to bring in new assistants to, improve the style of play. But I think Edin Terzic, he was, he had a good reason for wanting to play a little bit more defensive football. When your center backs are Sule and Matt Hummels, I think I don't think he looks stupid for making the decision he made. And look, now they're in the Champions League final. Maybe that has to do with the change in style that Matt Hummels said happened throughout the season. But I just think it was really tone-deaf comment to make. And now I have to say the biggest storyline of this is Borussia Dortmund attempting the miracle. I mean, that's the biggest storyline. Everyone going watching this game, they're watching this game to see if the miracle could be pulled off by Borussia Dortmund. And it will be a miracle for them to win the Champions League. Nobody expected them before this season to win the Champions League. Nobody gave them even a puncher's chance to win the Champions League. If they can do that with this team, with the team of 11 that they have, it will be a remarkable achievement. It will be a seismic shift in the way how we see Borussia Dortmund. And it'll just be the most famous night for this club, being able to do it against Real. I know they've won the Champions League before, but being able to do it against this version of Real Madrid, the way that they've been dominant in the Champions League with their comebacks in the last minute and all that, and despite having a poor season relatively in terms of how they should perform in Bundesliga, finishing 5th, a poor season and going on to win the Champions League, it'll be that is an absolutely remarkable achievement. We're gonna take another short break here. When I come back, I'm gonna discuss what is considered success for the USMNT at the Summer's Copa America.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, I discussed some of the biggest storylines going on in the Champions League final. I now discuss, I ask out the question, what is considered success for the U.S. men's national team at this summer's Copa America? So this is going to be a combined Copa America, very similar to the one that happened 2016, called the Copa America Centenario. It's very similar in the fact that we're going to have CONCACAF teams and North American teams combined in this big show of soccer. I think this tournament is going to be huge and has an opportunity to rival the likes of the Euros that are also happening this summer. I think we're going to have some big games just off the mark in the group stages. There's some mouth-watering ties when you look at the United States taking on United States taking on Uruguay, Argentina taking on Canada, Brazil taking on Colombia, Mexico taking on Ecuador, Jamaica. There's a lot of mouth-watering ties in this group stage game, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal tournament. Now, as far as the U.S. men's national team, this is their real main competitive games left until they play the World Cup in 2026. And it will be a home World Cup. And it's important for this tournament, obviously, for the U.S. to go as far as possible and to make a run. But, most importantly, is to show that this team is on some sort of an upward trajectory entering that World Cup. And, this is very important for them. Now, at the last Copa America Centenario, the U.S., finished second in their group. Then they beat Ecuador in the quarterfinals, and they lost to Argentina in the semifinals. Essentially, they beat every team that they're expected to beat, and they lost to the first team that they were expected to lose. And that's essentially what happened at the World Cup. But But the most important thing is to see an improvement between this team and the team we saw at the World Cup. And, now obviously, there's a game, they're expected to win, the first two games against Bolivia and Costa Rica, Bolivia and Panama. And they're gonna be expected to lose to Uruguay and then to lose to, whoever finishes second in that group, Brazil or Colombia. But again, if we're looking at this or looking at progression, and from the last World Cup, they need to win a game that they're not expected to win. And you could argue, in fact, I will argue, the U.S. men's national team, since Greg Berhalter has been here, they have not won a single game that they were not expected to win. Jesse Marsh said this on a podcast, but this was before he got the Canada job. He said Greg Berhalter, he hasn't had a signature win. He has not. Beating Mexico in the state of what Mexico football is in today's day and age is not a signature win. They're not a signature win. Mexico couldn't get out of the group stages in a World Cup with a group with Saudi Arabia and Poland. They couldn't get out of that group. I'm kind of, delegitimizing the success we have had against Mexico, over the last few years. I believe that says a lot more about the Mexican national team problems and issues rather than the U.S., being this dominant nation, which we are not when it comes to soccer. And, at that last World Cup, we were a toenail away from getting eliminated in that group stages. Iran, down that stretch in that second half, had multiple opportunities that could have sent the U.S. home. We were all on the edge of the seats watching that last, stoppage time, that last 8-9 minutes, because of the way Iran was, dominating us in that second half. And they flat out were. If you go back into that Wales game too, we took the lead early and we played amazing ball the first half. But in that second half, we were holding on for dear life. And, we could have succeeded the second. We could have conceded a second and, lost that game, which really would have put us in a deep major hole. Now, we did have that successful game against England where we drew 0-0, which needs to change how we look at that as a success. There needs to be a change in, culture in America or in soccer culture where drawing against the top nations is not considered success. But at that point in age, you can't argue that was success for the U.S. just because of the players that we have compared to them, and this is a perceived hype of the Mexican national or the England national team. But going back to this Copa America, there has to be some sort of progression from the last World Cup. There has to be, and I don't see how there could be with the Greg Berhalter. I think it's clear with the Greg Berhalter, he's not a horrible coach, but he's not a good coach. He's somewhere in between a horrible and a good coach. He's just an average coach that won't take the U.S. to the next level. He's not a type of manager that he's not a manager that can make the players better than the sum of their parts. Just flat out, he's not that kind of manager. And for me, it's frustrating knowing, what's going to happen and not being able to do anything about it, which is why I was very, very frustrated when the U.S. decided to retain Greg Berhalter. I feel like if you want to go on that run in the World Cup, you need a manager that can make the players better than the sum of their parts, a world-class manager. And the U.S. had opportunities to, interview and all that, very good managers, and they decided to pass it up for him. Now, I'm seeing the comments. I'm seeing Eric's comment. Does luck play a factor in winning the World Cup? Can a nation be lucky for 90 plus minutes? Well, luck definitely does have a factor in, trying to win a World Cup. Just flat out simple. Argentina won the World Cup, last World Cup. They went to a penalty shootout, against the Netherlands. They went to a penalty shootout against France. Colomwani had a one-on-one opportunity at the end, fluffs his line. Martinez makes a save for them. It could have easily went the other way. Luck obviously has huge thing to do with it. But at the same time, players make their own luck too. And managers are able to, managers that are at the top level, they make their players better than the sum of their parts. And I don't think Berhalter does that. So I think if the U.S. get lucky, maybe they could get lucky and, squeeze past the group stages like they were lucky last group stages. But when they play the first real team that they play, like they played the Netherlands, they're just going to go home because they don't have the players to compete with them. And if they do have the players to compete with them, they would get, their manager can. Last World Cup in the round of 16, the U.S. played the Netherlands and Louis van Gaal ran round and round Greg Berhalter, just completely outcoached him in the fact that he knew that the U.S. are going to try to, he let them have the ball. He let them have the ball and open themselves up. So when the U.S. opened themselves up in the Netherlands, they just quick fired and they countered off that. And it's just like, this is simple. Why does soccer go to penalties instead of like other sports and have another 15 minutes of overall football? Well, there's extra time, so they have another extra 30 minutes, and then they go to penalties. So it's 90 minutes, but then there's an extra 30 minutes, and then there's penalties. And a lot of people argue that extra time shouldn't even exist. If you can't decide the winner between 90 minutes, just go straight to penalties. I happen to be the one that believes extra time should exist of 30 minutes. But at the end of the day, there could be situations where players could play 180 minutes and there wouldn't be a difference. So sometimes, penalties just have to be there to decide who wins. But we're going to take a short break here. When I come back, I'll discuss my final topic of the day, and that's looking at some of the top headlines going on in the football world. The final topic of the day, we look at some of the top headlines going on in the football world. Now, if y'all got any questions, please ask them. Keep asking them. I'm going to answer them all, as this is a rather shorter topic. But I'm just going to discuss some of the top headlines. Endrick, obviously, it's documented his move to Real Madrid happening. He was in tears for his last game at Palmeiras. And, this summer, when he goes to Brazil and plays the Copa America, is really going to be the start of his big boy career, now playing in, the higher levels of football. And then he goes into a Real Madrid team where he definitely has, a chance to make an immediate impact. It's going to be the start of, a brilliant career, barring injuries. And, I'm very, very interested to see how his career goes. Edison Cavani, he has retired from Uruguay. I I remember yesterday or a day before when I was talking about, Uruguay and their chances, how, and I was talking about Darwin Nunez needing to step up for this Uruguayan team, talking about how Uruguay, despite them being a smaller nation, they've always developed, they've always, brought up these few young stars, just flat out stars. And these stars have been huge for them in international tournaments. Diego Forlan at the 2010 World Cup, Luis Suarez at the 2014 World Cup, a mixture of Luis Suarez and Edison Cavani, who had a brilliant 2018 World Cup. And, 2022 World Cup, they get eliminated in the group stage, and they don't have that star. Darwin Nunez was supposed to be that. That's what I thought. Darwin Nunez, he was the guy that could make that kind of impact. And he disappointed. But I think Edison Cavani, he has been that star for Uruguay. Him and Luis Suarez, the fact that they came from the same city is quite remarkable. Just fantastic footballer, second in goals, right behind Luis Suarez. Despite despite Uruguay having the best striker in the world for a very long time in Luis Suarez, just the ability of Cavani, his work rate, still forced him to put in the starting 11, forced the Uruguayan manager Oscar Tabares to put him in the starting 11, and he was just a very dominant player for Uruguay. What he's able to accomplish. He was part of that 2011 team that won Copa America. So hats off to Edison Cavani and a brilliant international career. There was rumors that he might have been involved in the setup for this upcoming Copa America, but he decides his time is up for his Uruguayan career. So salute to him, and he's had a brilliant career for Uruguay. Sancho, he talks about he had in an interview, prepping for this Champions League final, describes some of the backlash that he faced from the Euro final, from missing that penalty, and now he has not been fully recovered from the racist abuse that he suffered after missing the penalty. He said this in an interview that was published on Thursday. This is something that's in my head sometimes. I don't think I fully recovered yet on that part, but I'm trying my best to get over that. The backlash we got from it wasn't nice. Being in London, not in a million years, I would have thought we would have received that, especially representing our country. It's a memory I try to block, but I can't act like it didn't happen. So this is one of those memories that you try to get past it and be positive. Now he's going to be heading back to Wembley for the Champions League final on Saturday. And that's where it happened, the Euros final, by the way, and Wembley. He's going to be back at Wembley for the Champions League final for Borussia Dortmund when they take on Real Madrid. He admitted that it's surreal to be playing the Champions League after the suffering that he went through at Manchester United. The back and forth with him and Ten Hag, the fact that he has been in practicing with the youth team and all that. Just a remarkable journey for Jadon Sancho, and I feel like he has an opportunity to really, really get his career right back on the right track. Not that he hasn't already, but this will really, really help him. I discussed this a little bit, but not enough in a few days. Olympiacos, on Wednesday, they defeated Fiorentina in extra time to win the Champions League, in the Conference League, the European Conference League, and they're the first Greek club to ever done that. I think it's a remarkable accomplishment for them, but I think it's also a remarkable accomplishment for Jose Mendilibar, who's done a lot with little, and he's a guy that comes in and wins you trophies. He's done it for Seville. He's done it for Olympiacos. And I think he's a brilliant manager. And yes, he's 63 years old, so he's not really going to be up there for like some of these top clubs that are looking for a manager. But I still think he's brilliant. I see a comment saying, seems like there's so many amazing players in UEFA Premier League, La Liga, and Copa America. Is this MLS something that needs to grow? Well, Copa America is different. That's international football. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not an MLS fan either. I happen to watch the major football, the ones that matter, in my opinion. I happen to think MLS is a weaker standard of football, which is just reality. But I do believe MLS has a lot to do with the progression of U.S. soccer as a whole, with the soccer culture in America. And I think MLS will really take that next level after the World Cup being hosted in 2026. When the World Cup hosted in 1994 by America, that triggered the start of MLS and really, grew soccer in the sport, really exponentially. So I feel like having the World Cup now in 2026, with the way soccer is already viewed up to now, and the modern day of technology and social media and all that, I think it's going to take World Cup soccer to a much bigger level in America. And I think that will give a chance for MLS to grow. Now, I think MLS definitely has its weak points when it comes to, having a salary cap. That doesn't exist with these European teams. Not ones like the MLS. When you look at promotion relegation, the fact that they don't have promotion relegation, I think that adds to the entertainment factor of, these European leagues compared to MLS, with the fact that MLS, they don't like the fact that, not everything is a guarantee. Like even, in MLS, if you're weaker, you happen to get rewarded with a draft pick. That's something that's really, the opposite in European football culture, and the level of desperation amongst European football just makes it much more appealing. Also, the talent also has a lot to do with it, but also the fact that the level of desperation, if you get relegated, your town loses jobs, the city loses jobs, the economy of the city could collapse. It's a huge impact that it has, and the pressure that the players are under is huge, and it makes it more entertaining. You don't see none of that in MLS. Let's just be honest. You have a system of, a playoff system, a system very close to American sports. And, I think there's, I think MLS does have its way to go if it really wants to be able to compete with European teams. And, it might not even be able to. I don't think it's something that could happen within the near future. I think it's a huge climb that MLS is going to have to make to reach those sort of levels. Lucas Paquetá, he has remained with the Brazil Copa America squad despite his charges with betting. He's been charged. It's been rumored for a while that charges could be impending. Probably the reason why Lucas Paquetá is not a City player right now. But he still can be at the Copa America despite the betting charges. They've just been charges. No sanctions have been, he hasn't been punished yet. And the verdict it's going to be coming very, very soon. And, you just go from the viewpoint that, we'll just have to see how it goes. That's all that I have for y'all. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.